The Jonah soundtrack is banger though. My YouTube home screen has changed drastically during these last 6 weeks. I could feel the fluffy. It was honestly a great tragedy. That is a great line. Voyage of the Dawn Treader just makes me sad. All I'm saying is if I go to heaven and the animals can talk, I'm not gonna be disappointed. Hi guys, welcome back to Nerd Rants Christian Movie Edition Part 2. We are coming to the end of the Lent season, and so this will probably be my final multi-review Christian movie video for a bit. But yeah, this is what I have watched in the last couple weeks since my previous video dropped, so buckle up, there's quite a few. I legitimately don't remember the chronological order at this point, so we're kind of just gonna go with it. We'll start with the nostalgia ones. I've technically watched these before, but it's been a hot minute. I watched some VeggieTales. Not new VeggieTales, like OG VeggieTales. It was so good, so nostalgic. I watched the Jonah movie, the Esther episode, and the Lord of the Beans episode. They're so nostalgic. The Jonah soundtrack is banger though. It has no right being as good as it is. I keep forgetting to go through and find the songs on Spotify, but it's so good. Not only did VeggieTales spearhead 3D animation, but they were wonderful at songwriting. So they had so many things going for them. We love VeggieTales so much. It's so good. Yeah, there's not much to say about those besides nostalgia and music is great, and obviously the animation, for being some of the first 3D animation in the industry, so good. Better than some animation we have now, in all honesty. Anyway, yes, VeggieTales, nostalgic, love it. The other one that was a little bit more for nostalgia, I've seen it before, but for nostalgia, and the Narnia movies. The Narnia books, which, over there. I'm really bad at pointing. You can't really see them because they're white and they blend in with the lighting. The Narnia series. These books are wonderful. They are my childhood. I got the audio drama versions from the library consistently and would listen to them far into the night until I literally fell asleep. It was so good. They're so wonderful and I love them so freaking much. And I recently got the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie because it's the best one. Which we'll get into. But it's so good. There's a pretty, it's in a pretty case that is the image of the wardrobe on it, and I have an entire disc for extra bonus feature stuff, and it's pretty. And I got concept art in it. I was nerding out. It was great. So yes, I finally got that. Don't know why it took me so long. So the first one is literally the best movie. It's so good. It is the most accurate to the books. It's one thing I appreciate for all of these movies. The casting for all three of them, despite the quality of the rest of it, the casting is on point. I wish we could go back to when all of the cast members were the proper age and reshoot some of the movies, every single movie in a movie for every single book with these actors, because they were great. They were wonderful, and let me see if I can remember all the names. Anna Popwell, William Moseley, Georgie Henley, and Skander Keynes. I believe that's Pevensy's name, actor names. But you will always be my Pevensies. Let's just be real. You will always be the Pevensies to me. I will refrain from getting into a rant about the Greta Gerwig reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it. I will try to leave that out of this. There are plenty of people going on about the talks about Meryl Streep playing Aslan, and there is a multitude of reasons why that is not okay. The biggest of which is it's just disrespectful to the original story. Like, Aslan's a guy. Also, you're Liam Neeson playing a photorealistic lion, like CG Aslan peak. This was 20 years ago, which I realized yesterday. Makes me feel old. 20 years ago. And Aslan, the CG lion, looks better and shows more emotion than pretty much anything I have seen in Disney live action stuff, just in general, for the last 10. He is literally perfectly animated. It's wonderful. And from what my YouTube home screen has changed drastically during these last 6 weeks. I've gotten a lot of Narnia behind the scenes stuff, which I fudged my rules a little bit because it's related to Narnia, so it's technically Christian media. Anyway, but I've gotten some behind the scenes stuff and interviews and stuff, and it's talking about how Andrew Adamson, who directed the first two Narnia movies, was used to doing animated, so was very particular about how things were expressed, how the actors did their facial expressions, how everything looked. And so I attribute the wonderful CGI and like the use of practical effects with the CGI and like the Minotaurs actually having this big cow head on. I attribute that to him being very particular about how things looked. And I very much appreciate it because it looks amazing. So good. So yes, Aslan looks wonderful. I completely lost track of where I was going. I was talking about Meryl Streep. That's what I was talking about. So, first of all, Liam Neeson, photorealistic, beautifully animated lion, Aslan, who I could feel the fluffy when they touched him. I could feel the fluffy. Or whatever crap quality CGI lion they get in. I am imagining live action Lion King, lion, voiced by Meryl Streep. I have nothing against Meryl Streep as an actress. But for Aslan, I don't think they're ever going to beat Liam Neeson. Never. He was, like I said, the casting for the movies was impeccable. It was wonderful, and that's all I'm gonna say. Meryl Streep, I'm sorry. I have nothing against you as an actress, but you will never live up to Liam Neeson. I'm just gonna say it. The prospect of having a series go through the entirety of the books, that's exciting, but not the way they are saying it's going to happen. Like, I would love to have like a cinematic version of all 7 books. Like Horse and His Boy. It was not my favorite book as a child. I'm going to absolutely love it because it's so different from all the other ones. But having all of them in a cinematic format would be wonderful. But not when they're made in this day and age. I do not trust today's movie industry, show industry, whatever you want to call it. I don't trust them with it. Also, it's through Netflix, I believe. Trust it even less. Just saying. I don't want a streaming service original with gender swaps and apparently a whole monologue about girlhood. I'm sorry, I said I was gonna refrain and then I immediately went into it. I'm not excited for what's about to happen to Narnia. It makes me so sad. But anyway, the original 3 movies that they made. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Love it to pieces. It is in my heart it is a literal masterpiece, and it will always have a special place in my heart. I love it so much. Prince Caspian, the second one. Yes, we're talking about the movies. The second one. It differs more from the books than Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe did. But it keeps the heart of the story, in my opinion. I can genuinely enjoy the Prince Caspian movie because it keeps the heart of the story. Andrew adds some scenes and changes a few things to make it a little more action, add some more action to it, which is not the worst thing in the world. Like, it does take away a little bit from the original story, but in the end, when you look at it, when you watch it, the heart of the story is still there, and the struggle and the things that the different characters are struggling with is still there. I do wish we had more introduction with like Caspian and Dr. Cornelius, so that we could, Dr. Cornelius, so we had a little bit more investment in the professor's character. They never actually say that his name is Dr. Cornelius in the movie, I noticed when I rewatched it. They just call him Professor or Doctor, which is a little bit sad that he doesn't even really get named, because he's wonderful. So I wish there had been a little bit more of his character, and especially him and Caspian interacting, because then when we have the siege, not a siege, but the words, it's Friday, guys. When we have that nighttime fight sequence, that ambush or whatever that they have, and Caspian goes off plan to get Dr. Cornelius, it would be more, I'd be more invested if I had more, like, because I'm invested because I've read the books and I know what their relationship is. And we get hints to that in the beginning when he, wakes up Caspian, and, he's like, I have 5 more minutes, and he goes, you won't be watching the stars. So we have like the allusion to what their relationship was in the books, but I wish we'd been able to see it a little bit. He pushed that off and skipped over it to have that more, I don't know, the higher energy, I don't know what word I'm thinking of, but like the bigger beginning with Caspian's aunt giving birth. But I would have like a little bit more of Cornelius and Caspian's relationship. So, but otherwise, the heart of the story is still there. And even though there are some scenes they add or change, like the heart of the story stays the same. And the scene, like, I think the biggest thing he adds is the fight scene at the castle, where Peter gets trigger happy and they try to attack. And they try to attack Neraz's castle. But it works into the story and the way that he, shifts it a little bit. Because, again, time constraint of a movie, most people are not going to sit through a 3 to 4 hour movie. There's people like me who are weird, and are just like, yes, give me shot for shot of what happens in the books, word for word, exactly what happens on the page, how it's described, all of that. I will sit through the 4 to 5 hour movie. There's us, and then there's everyone else, who are just like 2 hours, and I'm dropping off. You might get 2.5 out of me, but like, that's max. So there's us, and then there's nerds, and then there's normal people. And unfortunately, the movie industry, for, you know, making ends meet for the budget of their movie and, you know, all of the financial and logistics reasons, require viewership, and so have to cater a little bit less to the nerds. But anyway, but the heart of the story is the same, and I really appreciate how he stays true to that despite the differences that he brings into it. And then we have Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which, the movie, it's like, as a movie, it's not a bad movie. Like, there are movies that are not true to the book, to the source material, and also awful. Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example. Then there are movies that are not true to the source material, but are still decent, good or decent movies, like the Percy Jackson movies. They're not bad, they're just very much not the books. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is not as off as the Percy Jackson movies. Not as off as that. But they are, it is different. It is much different. The plot, they changed the plot, and take out a lot of the islands. Like, they mash the different islands together. Because Voyage of the Dawn Treader in the books is literally just this fun seafaring adventure where they go and they encounter all these different islands and all of these different, you know, dangers and obstacles because of this journey that they're going on, and they're going out to figure out what happened to Caspian's father's friends, and that is the plot of the book. In the movie, it starts out that way. They're just going off and they're going to look for the Seven Lords, and then they create this plot with mist that represents temptation. And I'm not opposed to that being an aspect of the movie, because there's a whole island with a pool that turns things to gold. So I'm not opposed to the idea of temptation being a part of this movie. But they take it really far and they make it this weird supernatural mist that's also a curse. And now, for reasons unknown, all the Seven Lords have 7 magical swords. Not opposed to the idea of 7, because 7 is the number of completion, according to, Christian theology. That is the number of completion. It's kind of considered God's number, that kind of thing. So I'm not opposed to like the use of 7 being used, like the use of the number 7, but it's like, I don't know. They had this whole plot with the mist, and it doesn't fully make sense, and suddenly the swords are magical. And then when, you know, they have to lay them all on the table in order to break the curse, and then when they do that, they finally get them all on there, there's a sky beam, and Peter's sword, wielded by Edmund, also gets magic, so he can kill the cursed sea serpent, which isn't, oh, sad. The sea serpent actually exists in the books. In this, it's just a manifestation of Edmund's fear. But yeah, I think I figured out the issue that I had and where things went wrong with Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Like I said, the Prince Caspian and Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they were directed by Andrew Adamson, who had the Narnia projects as his first live action projects, and he was very particular about how things looked and how things were portrayed and all of that. And so he's very particular about the details. And then I was paying attention to the credits this time, because I was paying attention at the beginning. I was like, I think I didn't see that a particular name, So I'm gonna watch at the end to see if I just missed it because I was engrossed in what was happening on the screen, because that is very possible, or if I'm right. And I was right. Voyage of the Dawn Treader was direct. Andrew Adamson was not involved in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I don't know why, but he wasn't. And I think that's where a lot of the problems shot up. The Minotaurs were completely CGI. Like, there were no more like practical effects on the mystical creatures. Like the Minotaurs was entirely CGI, so he looked weird, like his eyes were too big and too visible compared to how they were in the originals. So they were all CGI. I don't know if Adam probably would have fully CGI'd a Eustace in dragon form anyway. It wasn't again, it's like, it was something about the eyes for Eustace in his dragon form. It was like, oh, this looks fine. And then it like close up on his face and just like, it's a little off for some reason. Either the eyes were slightly out of proportion, or they were too human looking, or something. Like, they didn't quite look right. And then Reepicheep, again, he looked fine, but it was like, again, in the eyes, something about the eyes, this was not CGI quite correctly, so it just looked a little wrong. And then there's the moment where at the end where Lucy hugs him and his fur looked a little janky around her hands. I'm just saying. They did do Aslan justice though, honestly. Aslan doesn't show up too much in this one, but they do honestly do him justice in this one as far as his CGI goes, because there's the moment he's standing on the beach and like there's wind, and so his mane is blowing, and that looks good. I don't think any of the CGI is bad. It was just like around the eyes and stuff was off. So I'm really glad that they paid careful attention to Aslan and made sure he looked correct. And it helped again that he doesn't have to show a lot of emotion and be around a whole lot in this one. So Aslan looked fine. Other CGI was a little janky. The whole plot that they add is really unnecessary, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And because of this plot, they bring in this family, these side characters that are a little like a husband and a daughter who lose their wife to the mist because it eats people apparently. Like, I don't know what this mist was supposed to be. They sacrificed people to it. It tempted people. It was literally just like, hey, that's Dark Island. It's evil. Which, like, the Dark Island exists in the book, but it is very different. It's very different in the book. And it is not the root of all evil in the world of Narnia, and there's no curse of evil or any of that. So it's like extra. They made it extra, and I don't particularly like it. So, Reepicheep has a different voice actor. I'm not opposed to that. It's just the fact that it was different. Like, he started talking and it was about 5 minutes into him like being in the movie and he's saying his lines. I'm like, that is a different actor. Like, that is not the same person. And it wasn't. I looked it up afterwards just to make sure. And it was not the same actor voicing in Prince Caspian versus Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is not a huge deal. I just, like, they both did well as Reepicheep. I just wish they were the same. And then Caspian loses his accent, which their reasoning is, he does. Literally, the reasoning was the one that made more sense came after. It was, the director didn't have to keep continuity with the other, make Caspian sound like the other Telmarines anymore, so he didn't. And his excuse was people lose accents over time. And I'm sitting here going, true. It's been 3 years that a majority of the Telmarines still live in Narnia. So it was honestly a great tragedy that Caspian lost his accent. I personally loved the accents. And their reasoning was, we don't have to make him sound like the other Telmarines anymore, so we're just not going to. And I'm just, you suck. The accent was not bad, and the fact that it is gone makes zero sense. Yes, people can lose their accents over time, but when there are still people with that accent in his kingdom, and it has been only 3 years. Like, I know that's, to some people, that feels like a long time. It has been only 3 years. My voice has not changed in 3 years. Like, genuinely frustrating. Like, it was always annoying that the continuity wasn't right. But when I looked up the reason, when I found the reason for why, that just made me mad. So anyway, just the continuity between the movies just falling off, and it was really sad. And new director bringing in his like new view of the story, which in my opinion does not make sense. And so it really did end up, I think, losing the heart of what the original story in the books was, which is really depressing. Again, casting's on points like Dranian was good. Eustace. Oh, bless you, Will Poulter. You are wonderful, Eustace. He did so good. He was wonderful. But he's only there for maybe half the movie, because the other half of the movie he's a dragon. And Eustace can't talk as a dragon, so it's really sad actually, because he does so good. As I said before, I just want to go back in time to when all of the actors are the appropriate age and make all of them. With Andrew Adamson directing. That is a caveat. Andrew Adamson has to direct, because he did so well with the first two. Anyway, I got on such a rant about this. I'm sorry. I have like 7 other movies to get through. I'm very passionate about this series though, because it was my childhood and because I loved it so much. And one of my favorite words is Hireath, Hireath, H-I-R-E-A-T-H, Hireath. Yeah, sorry. One of my favorite words. It means homesickness for somewhere you've never been, or a home you lost like generations ago. So it's a homesickness for someplace you've never been, you've never seen. And I love the word, because as a bookworm and someone who is so engrossed and enthralled by stories, both in cinematic and book media and all of that, and stories are my lifeblood and that kind of thing, it's a very relatable word for me. And never more so than in the context of Narnia. If I were to live in any fantasy world, in any book, my first choice would be Narnia. Maybe it is because it is the world I grew up with. Maybe it's because of the Christian belief and the undertones that went into this world, but I want to, all of the places in fantasy, I want to live in Narnia. I finished, I got to the end of Prince Caspian, and they're going through the tree, they're leaving, they're going back to England, and I'm watching this scene going, why would you leave? Can I trade places with you? I want to live in a world with magical creatures and the lion version of Jesus and They left and the movie ended, and I was genuinely sad that Narnia does not exist and I cannot live there. Anyway, we'll move on before I get into another rant about something in those movies. Like, if you want to go on talking and ranting about Narnia, just start it up in the comments. I will go for days. Next couple movies is the God's Not Dead series. Unfortunately, I could not find the first one literally anywhere. Really aggravating because it's probably my favorite of the five, or four, having now watched all of them. They're the not based on true events Christian movies, so they're a little bit cringe, a little bit, and they're just a little cheesy. The first one is probably the best one. It's very good, and it's I'm blanking on his name now. But it's a college student standing up to his professor for his beliefs, and they get into a whole debate, and it's very fun, and I really liked it, which made me really sad that I couldn't find it. Anyway, the second one, I think it gets a little cheesier. And it's not a bad movie. It's a teacher says something about Jesus in the classroom, but it's a public school. And yeah, they definitely, I don't want to say villainize atheists more than might be reality. I mean, there's definitely atheists out there that are very, very aggressively against anti-Christian and would go to those lengths. But they do, I think, exaggerate it a little bit. In the second movie, for sure. In the first movie, it seems fairly realistic. In the second one, it seems a little bit exaggerated. The third one, I think, is a little more realistic again. And then the fourth one, that one's probably a little more realistic too. I think it's mostly the second one where it seems a little more exaggerated because it's not just the one character that's very aggressively against it. It's literally the entire school board and the entire family of the one girl that kind of sparks the conversation in the first place. And it's so many people. So like the dynamic between the Christian atheist thing, it seems very exaggerated in the second one. The second one's probably my least favorite. Partially because of that, it seems less realistic because of that exaggeration. And yeah, it's no movie, I don't think any movie has portrayed the actual dealings of a courtroom accurately, because they're all yelling at each other, and I don't know, but second one's probably my least favorite. I understand that it was made to raise awareness about the times that it does happen that a teacher gets literally sent to trial because they mention Christianity in the public school, and it's this misunderstanding of what separation of church and state means. But it definitely could have been executed better, probably. The third one is pretty good. We get back the kid from the first movie, and I think, yeah, the first and the third one are probably the better ones. They're done a little bit better, and that one's there's a church that had a college campus built around it, and people start, questioning like, why is this church here? Maybe it shouldn't be here anymore, and getting into kind of a little bit of a battle over who gets this church, who has ownership of this church. Is it the campus because it's technically on the campus grounds, or are you allowed to keep it since it was there before? And gets into a little bit of a fight about that, and then at the end coming to terms with this realization that Christians have become so vocal about what they are against that most people have no idea what we're for. And that's a very real concept, and definitely a message that needs to be heard by us Christians. Like, we're so negative about things that people don't actually understand what we do believe. They know we don't agree with like the LGBTQ community. They know we don't agree with the common moral things, which time changer rant. But like, they know all of the things that we're against, but they don't know we believe God is a God of love and mercy and generosity and all of the good things, the things that we are supposed to be living out. So that was a very good point. It's a very good point that they made, and it was cool to see how they ended with him. Also, first and third movie, props to them. People actually died. The third one, within the first 10 minutes, like, well done. But anyway, so we get to this point and we go through all of this, and the pastor is fighting for every inch to keep this church, and then gets to the end, has a student go like, I'm questioning my faith because everybody knows what Christians are against, but nobody knows what they're actually for. And having that realization is, okay, come with me. And he forgives this guy who was indirectly responsible for his friend's death at the beginning of the movie and destroying the church, and lets go of all of the human reasons he wants to keep this church, and realizes, no, this is no longer where I'm supposed to be. And coming to that realization and making things right with that, and really taking advantage of this opportunity to stand in front of the entire populace of this college and go, no, I messed up. This is what the church is for. This is what Christians believe in. And because of that, I am letting go of this. And I am throwing in the towel because this is not a godly fight. This was my fight. So the ending of that one is definitely, like, the third one and the first one are probably the best of the four. The second one's probably the worst of the four. And then the fourth one's kind of meh. Like, it's kind of meh. The atheist Christian dynamic is a little more realistic because the super hyper aggressive guy is atheist is the one character, not but it's literally the same pastor from the third movie and all of the movies, but the same pastor from who's the main focus in the third movie is running for Congress against the attorney in the second. They just love to bring characters back in this universe. From the attorney in the second one, who is super hyper, again, literally hates religion and is trying to force it out of literally everything because it has no place and science is God, basically. It's basically an underdog story and a feel-good story, so it doesn't have a whole lot of investment on my side, at least. The storyline, in my opinion, is a little bit weak, but it's this one. They all, excuse me, a lot of fillers in this one. Sorry, guys. They all have one concept that they focus on and they try to raise awareness for. So the first one is like standing up for your faith, even when no one else does. Like, you can use your voice even though you think you're too young and you're like a freshman in college. Like, he can use you despite your age, despite your experience, despite, all of that. The second one is standing up to like the the separation of church and state gets introduced. It's like the whole idea of not being able to bring it, our Christian beliefs into the public school system. The third one is very much where Christians talk about what you're for, not what you're against. Be Jesus to the people, don't preach at them. And then the fourth one is very much about Christians need to vote. And it brings up the statistic that there are so many of us that don't vote. And I will wholeheartedly say, I will admit, I am in the boat of Christians who do not vote. I have no interest in politics. I really, really don't like the topic. I, to some extent, avoid the topic. Let's be real. I don't like it. But I do understand the importance of voting. I really do. Registering to vote is one of those things that is not of like immediate importance, and so it doesn't get done. And then it doesn't get done, and it doesn't get done, and it still hasn't been done. One of these days, hopefully one of these days before the next election. But it literally calls Christians out like, hey, there's a whole bunch of us that aren't voting. Why not? The reason it's like we're not voting, cannot complain about the state of the country because we're not voting. We're not putting the Christian values on we're not bringing those Christian values to the ballot, and we're not supporting that and pushing those beliefs so that the kind of people that we believe should be running the country are running the country. So yeah, that one, again, not the strongest of the four movies, but definitely, for me personally, like the most like, hey, you, yeah. So, yeah, there's nothing like mind-blowing about them. They are definitely a little cheesy, a little cringy, but I will say the first and third are definitely the best. The fourth one called me out a bit, and then the second one was probably the worst in my opinion, but my opinion. Just, that's the God's Not Dead series. Like, I can enjoy them, but like, they're not the greatest Christian movies in the world. Okay, down to the last three. We're almost done, I promise. I shouldn't have too much to say about them. Left Behind. I did not know this movie existed until I found it in the $5 Walmart bin. Randomly. It is about post-rapture Earth. This is fun. This is a fun one for you Revelation nerds. So it starts with the introduction. The rapture happened. Everyone is trying to figure out what's going on. Everyone is terrified. All of the non-believers and like the on-the-fence people are left. And it is a story about a few select, like a small group of people who like, there's a husband and a daughter who their mom was very wholeheartedly Christian, and the implication is so was the little brother. Those two got raptured, but then they've been talking about it. Like the wife's been talking about it, telling my husband like, this is going to happen. Someday this is going to happen. Like, come on. And then he doesn't, she gets raptured. He immediately knows what's happening. He knows what happened, but he can't bring himself to accept it. And so it's his journey. And there's this pastor that gets left behind because like, this is just what he was supposed to be doing. It never became this personal thing for him. And so we have this pastor, and we have this family, and we have the daughter's boyfriend, basically. I think that's what he is. Anyway, we have this small group of people that are coming together, and they start diving into God's word, and this video that this lead pastor of the church that the other pastor guy is from left behind in like preparation for the rapture. That's probably the cheesiest part. And they're digging into Revelation and prophecy and seeing all these parallels and realizing no, this is the rapture. This is all true. And they're turning to God and realizing, understanding because of the prophecy, because they know what's coming now. Like with the 7 years of tribulation and the Antichrist and all that. And they're seeing this is real. Jesus is the only way to avoid this as long as we make it through tribulation. He is our only way to make it through what is to come. And like to see our loved ones again, obviously on top of that. But it's them figuring out, how do we spread this message to people, to other people? Them probably about halfway through it, starting to like trying to think of who could the Antichrist be. The 7 years of tribulation don't start until the Antichrist is revealed. And so thinking their way through that and like considering these different things. And Damien Dark's actor shows up again. Like, he keeps showing up in Christian things that I'm watching, and it's a little bit, gives me a little bit of whiplash. Anyway, so they're just going through post-rapture Earth, but pre-tribulation Earth, and it's very interesting. Like, I have no idea. I have not studied Revelation. I don't even remember if I've read all the way through Revelation. I probably haven't read the entirety of Revelation. We'll get there. But like, so I don't completely understand how all of this works and how accurate everything ties in together. But it's very interesting to watch and see that and go like, Jesus is still their hope, despite like the rapture happened, tribulation is coming, the world is literally on its last leg, and yet they find hope in that, and they are reaching out and they are trying to reach as many people as they can, because Jesus is there's sudden realization, and with a lot more immediacy and a lot more stakes, honestly. There's so much more desperation in it. They are trying to share it with everyone because they are realizing Jesus is the only way, and we have very little time. And so really taking the, like, teach me to number my days by the reins and being like, no, we literally know. We know there are only so many days left. We have to share this. And so having the desperation. So it's very interesting. And also the idea that they believe because they witnessed the rapture. Like, pre-rapture, apparently nothing could made them believe. Then they watched the rapture. And then they have this little introduction to like, it's because of this. Despite all of the like disinformation that the news is spreading. That's another really cool concept, is like the media spreading all the disinformation and trying to point it to anything except the rapture and except God. It was a very interesting movie to watch. I don't know, for like the Revelation nerds and all of that who are very intrigued by like end times and all that, I definitely recommend. It's, even as a non-Revelation end times nerd, it was very interesting to see. But I feel like the end times people, enthusiasts, I don't know what you want to call yourselves, might find it even more so, and might get some good enjoyment out of that. But yeah, Left Behind it was a very interesting movie, and one that I really didn't expect to find, especially in a $5 Walmart bin. Okay. We'll probably end on the one I watched most recently. So, The Case for Christ. This is what I had heard about a while ago, and like heard about the book and all that, and the fact that I think I heard about the fact that they were making the movie. But I never got the chance to actually go watch it. So I've been intrigued about this movie for a while. And then I find it's like, oh my gosh, I remembered it. I'm like, this is a very good excuse to watch it. It's very cool, and I definitely can tell we have to cut out a little bit of his like researching and all that, because again, time constraints of a movie, but they go very in depth about this is the physical evidence for the reliability of Scripture and the death of Jesus Christ. So him going through him, so we have, agnostic/atheist family. The wife is, she starts to feel that hole. She meets their daughter chokes. This Christian lady saves him and goes, I'm not here by accident. Like, I was gonna go somewhere else and God told me to come here. And then came there and was able to save her because she was a nurse. And so piquing the wife's interest, and then she goes to church with them, with this lady. I'm blanking on her name. Excuse me, I'm talking too fast. And eventually gives her life to Christ and starts the whole Christian thing. And her husband is literally like terrified by this, is actively trying to make her be like, no, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Why are you doing this? And her trying to convince him, it's like, no, this is real. This is one of the realest things. This is like the realest thing I've ever felt in my life. And him then, because of that, being like, oh my gosh, my wife is changing. This is not the woman I married. I'm going, is there a way to disprove Christianity? And his Christian friend, like his Christian coworker, goes, well, shoot for the resurrection, because if Jesus never raised from the dead, there's no Christianity. And he's just like, why would you give me this smoking gun? And the guy looks at him and goes, because I don't think you can pull the trigger. Because I do not think you can, literally just, I don't think you can pull the trigger. And I was like, that is a great line. And then proceeds to have the rest of the movie go through this entire process of all of the different theories. What is the reliability of Scripture? All of the different theories for how that, like atheists would have for how he could have been like not raised to life again. So we go through, it's like, hey, the reliability of Scripture. We have more copies of it than we have of literally any other historical document. And because of that, and because they corroborate, it is probably the most reliable historical book we have access to. There are so many freaking copies. And the earliest copy dates back to 30 years after the event happened, versus the hundreds of years that we have for the next most documented or most copied ancient document. And is literally goes through, it's like, this is how we prove the authenticity of a historical document. This is where the Bible stands with thousands. It was definitely thousands of copies. I can't remember if it was, I think it was definitely tens of thousands of copies. I don't think it was millions, but there are tens of thousands of historical copies of the Bible. And then there was the Iliad, I believe, is the other one. And it has like maybe a couple of thousand. I can't remember the numbers exactly. I'm very sorry. If you're interested, go look it up. But it only has like maybe a couple thousand. And is significantly less. And again, like the first written copy we have 30 years after the resurrection, versus I think a couple hundred years after the events of the Iliad or its first telling or whatever. And so I'm going through, it's like, oh crap, so Scripture is reliable. Mass hallucination goes to a psychologist. That's literally not possible. You cannot have that much that mass delusion happening at the same time where everyone sees the same thing the same way. And so disproving that. And then he finally gets to that, Jesus didn't actually die. He was taken off the cross too early and they threw him in a tomb and then he healed from his injuries. When I'm sitting there like, no medical attention for 3 days. Anyway, and then literally goes to a doctor and he's like, no, if you look at crucifixion, if you look at everything they did to him before the crucifixion, if you consider he got stabbed in the side with a spear before they took him down, he could not have survived. And then going, the Romans knew how to kill people. They made sure people were dead before they took them off of a cross, because if they took them off the cross and that person escaped, that soldier who was responsible for that would die. And so bringing in all of the, like, there is no way he would have survived his wounds and come back. And there's so much evidence, both through scripture and the 500 witnesses plus, 500 plus, there were 500 at one time, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And all of the other people that saw him post-resurrection. And so going through all of that and bringing this man, this atheist who was actively trying to bring his wife away from Christianity, goes investigating to disprove it and finds himself believing it. And it's so good. It's another one of those based on true events Christian movies. So that vein of Christian movies, I think, is just sort of peak. Because of they have to bring the reality into it. It's based on a real story. So I don't know. Those movies are always like peak. They're so good. So yes, Kids for Christ is very cool. You can definitely tell that they like skim back on some of the stuff because, you know, we can't cover literally everything in a movie. So yeah, but it's very cool. And yes, I recommend. Okay, last one. I watched this last night. This one, not based on true events, but so good. 2011, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It's called Courageous. I knew this movie existed. Like, I have always known this movie existed. My parents have it on DVD. I've never seen it, and I've never looked into what it was about, so I had no clue. I went in blind. 4 police officers. They're like 2 sets of partners. They run, they kind of like, they're breaking up drug deals and all of that at the time of this movie is happening. One of the police officers loses his 9-year-old daughter. There's also a Mexican Christian family, and God uses one of the police officers that loses his daughter to give this guy a job. So then he's in the mix. But anyway, he loses his 9-year-old daughter. And so he's struggling with that, and he's mourning that. And because of this loss, he starts actively looking into what God expects of him as a father. And is just baffled and realizing, I have not been doing my job and my duty as a father. And so he writes out this whole like resolution for himself. It's like, I'm going to be better for my son, for the boy I have left, the child that I have left, and for my wife. And makes this resolution, and then he gives it to his friends, goes, I just need you to keep me accountable. And they decide, let's sign it too. And so they go into it and they sign it, and so it's the 5 of them, the 4 police officers and Javi, the Hispanic guy. We love Javi. He's wonderful. So we have they're all signed this, and then it's this guy working through his grief. It's him realizing what God's plan for fathers is, and then him seeking to live that out, and the struggles that come with that, and all of the different things. And it's very much a spotlight on the necessity of a father in a child's life, for so many reasons. But it's such a good movie. And just emphasizes the importance of being a father, being present, being active in your child's life. And it was wonderful, and I love it. And I think it definitely spoke more to me, one, as a child care provider, because I work with children all the time, and like being being a Christian and being a childcare provider and wanting so much to bring my beliefs and stuff into my workplace. And like me having that aspect of it, and also me like getting married and like starting to have those conversations about kids and all of that, because yeah. So it definitely spoke more to me because of those situations, these different situations of my life that I'm in at the moment. But yeah, it was so good. And again, highly recommend. Like, early 2000s movies and like shows and all that, it's like, they're just good in general across the board. Like, not even just the Christian stuff. Like, the early 2000s secular media is also very, very good. And I miss it. But yes, I highly recommend all of these, most of these movies. Like, God's Not Dead, you don't necessarily have to watch them. I don't know if I'll recommend them. I don't know if I highly recommend them. The rest of these, I highly recommend. So yes, I recommend all of them. I highly recommend all of them except the God's Not Dead series and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. The God's Not Dead series is pretty good, but not necessarily a must-watch. Voyage of the Dawn Treader just makes me sad. Don't get me wrong, I was still tearing up a little bit when they left Narnia, but that's because it was Narnia, not because of the movie. I'm just jealous, okay? Anyway, that is the Christian media that I have watched in the last couple weeks. We have one full week left. Like, Sunday is Palm Sunday, and then it's Holy Week. And that is the last week of Lent. I don't have a whole lot yet planned for that. I have a cover that I do have recorded, so that I'll probably release that at some point next week. I also plan on watching The Passion of the Christ, and so you'll probably get my thoughts on that as well. I have seen it before. So depending on how many thoughts I have after the fact, either in a short or a longer length video. But yeah, and you'll probably get more than a few Full of Eyes animations throughout this last week of Lent. Because they're all wonderful and I have more than one left on my list. Anyway, those are my thoughts on these movies. Feel free to continue the rant in the comments, especially Narnia. I will, again, like I said, I will go on for days about Narnia. It's my childhood. It is the home that I have never been, and yet I long for. That sounds a little bad. Heaven is the home I've never been, but I long for, like, above all else. But also Narnia. On a lesser scale, Narnia. All I'm saying is if I go to heaven and the animals can talk, I'm not gonna be disappointed. I should stop. Okay, those are my thoughts. Feel free to continue the discussion in the comments. If you have any Christian movie recommendations, love to hear those, because I would love to continue, even if it's not like an everyday thing, continue to have that inflow of Christian media in my life. Yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Share yours. I post videos on this channel on Saturdays for the time being. We will see. My CDA class ends in 2 weeks, and then it'll probably be a couple more weeks to finish up the exam and verification visit. So by the end of May, I should be done with all of my CDA stuff. So we'll see what happens in June. But for now, I post videos on Saturdays and I post videos on my audiobook channel on Thursdays. I will see you all next time.